This week on Fade to Obsidian, we will be discussing Iron Gold chapters 18 through 30. We recommend that you have also read to this point in the book to avoid spoilers. Please be aware that this episode contains discussions about violence and death, as well as strong language. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Fade to Obsidian. I am Skipper, joined as always by Crescent. And this week we have our first duplicate guest other than Salem, Hawking. Welcome back, Hawking.
Glad to be back. I appreciate the re-invite.
Yeah, no, thank you. Well, not even just re-invite, but you are so fabulous in your wealth of knowledge that you have become our emergency we can't find other people person, which we greatly appreciate. So thank you for that one.
No problem. Happy to help anytime.
Yeah. This week what are we drinking to start? What are we all having?
Hawking, you drinking anything today?
No, like last time, I don't really drink anymore, so
water again. That's fair.
Water with Liquid IV if you want to plug Liquid IV. You can sponsor them.
Get us a sponsorship.
I feel like Hydro just needs to be funded by Liquid IV overall, just in her life. And if that can extend into the Fade, that would be great. Yeah. All right, Crescent, what do you have?
I've got Four Roses bourbon because the Queen's Kiss is a rose.
I like it.
Also the Duke.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I have Summersby cider shipped to me from Crescent. And it's a cider because we get to meet Apple, or Apollonius, or Apple as we all like to call him in the den. So I've got our cider.
I feel like you guys put way more effort into figuring out what drinks you want each week to attach to the chapters. It's so good.
It is, yeah.
It totally wasn't like a 5 minutes before thing, being like, oh shit, what should we drink?
Mm-hmm. It is, it's
and me staring at my whiskey cabinet going, what am I going to drink?
Yeah, he has a full selection. It's like, well, here are my 5 options. How can I tie it in without making a cocktail? And this one just worked well because I had it thanks to Crescent there. So thank you, Crescent. Happy birthday to me.
Welcome.
Still.
Yep.
But yeah,
it hasn't been a month yet, so.
It has not been a month, so it is still my birthday. That's how that works. I think this comes out, though, after my birthday month, but we'll pretend it doesn't.
It will come out on the 17th.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
Good work, team.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Look at us go. We're like professionals.
Yeah. Something like that. This week we're talking Iron Gold 17 to 30. So only really kind of, there's a few big things that happen, but it's an interesting section.
A lot of setup.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of building.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is interesting that even this, that's how much bigger Iron Gold and then Dark Age is than the first 3, that on chapter 29 we're getting one of the largest setups for the rest of the book, in comparison to if this was Red Rising chapter 30, we'd be halfway through the Institute. Cassius has already betrayed us, we're well on our way.
Just about, because Cassius stabs Darrow in chapter 33.
There you go. Yep.
I mean, that's not what Iron Gold is. It's one big giant setup for, minus a couple things, but everything that comes, which I guess is why it's probably people's least favorite book. Although I thoroughly enjoy it, but that's also because my boy gets introduced in this book.
Who's your boy?
Ephraim.
Mm-hmm. The Gray Fox.
That's right.
I like it. Yeah. Yeah, I do agree that it's probably it my... Yeah, I feel like it is my least favorite because it's so setup-wise rather than I like the action-adventure, and we're not getting that as much in this one, rather than... It is fun rereading this, because this is the first time I'm rereading since I've read Dark Age. And so I'm seeing more the setup and appreciating it more this time around than the first 2 times I read it, because it just was like, oh, well, you exist, and then you get to Dark Age and you're like, oh, I get it. I get it.
I think the biggest reason is that like the entire first trilogy is just like foot on the gas, nitro fueled insanity, and then it's just like haul on the brakes, and then we have this slow build book.
Yeah.
And then it drops off the like it's the up of the roller coaster, and then you hit the top, and then Dark Age.
Yes, that's a very good point. Yeah.
Now you have 3 different people that you have to learn about, get their backstory, and that can be really hard to get into, especially since you have the first 3 books that you didn't have that. So I can see why it's a tough read, especially for the first go round.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're hearing that, I feel like, a lot in the Den of people don't like Lyria because she's whiny. They don't like Ephraim because he's depressed. They don't like Lysander because he's stuck up bitch.
Lysander.
Yeah. And it's just because I think we're so used to being in Darrow's head. And at the beginning, like we reread Red Rising, and it's like, he started as such a pompous ass, and you kind of forgot that he thought he was the end all be all shit. And we're now at a point that we know his inner thoughts so well that they make sense, and we now have to learn these other 3 and why theirs makes sense, which it's a bit slower going. No.
I would say especially with Lyria, because like she's whiny, but for good reason. I mean, everything that's happened to her, she comes across really abrasive when she doesn't need to be. Well,
yes.
Yes, I can't say she doesn't need to be. There's a reason behind it, but it is really hard. But I think it's important to get that perspective. It's not just this warrior or this god. It's a regular human being that lives in this new world that doesn't know where she fits in or how to continue.
Yeah.
With everything taken from her.
Yeah, we talked last time about how the first time I did a read through, I didn't like Lyria, and this is the same time I didn't like Io my first read through. And it is interesting that this time what I'm feeling towards her is a lot more sympathetic, but I think also I still get upset with her when, and we'll get more into this when we get into her section, but I get too defensive, I think, about she's so mad at Mustang and Darrow, and they've abandoned us, and I think it's that I got so defensive my first read throughs, instead of now it's like, well, I get it. Like,
I think it doesn't help that as you read, all of this anger that she has from other people is her perception of them, even though nobody's come across as being pitying towards her or talking down to her. It's all what she thinks that they're going to react to. Just like when she's talking to, oh my god, the main scientist that's checking on Buckley. Like she even mentions that his eyes look at her different than what other people do. They don't look at her as pitying. He looks like he has pain behind his eyes as well. And I just don't see that from any other interaction. It makes her come off as really judgmental and hard to kind of connect with.
Yeah, that's a very good call out. That she just immediately has her back up against everybody, and it's like, why?
Yeah.
No. Well, we are gonna read through or work through POV by POV as we did last time, because we felt that worked really well. And we are going to go out of order than they appear, because last time we settled on Lysander, and just didn't. I don't think we had the energy for him.
Nobody likes to end on a Lysander chapter.
Nobody. Yeah, I refuse when I'm reading through this. While I've read Iron Gold rereads, when I do Dark Age, and now I'm halfway through Lightbringer, and I refuse to like end on certain POVs. He's one of them. I need somebody. I usually like ending on Darrow. It's just my comfort zone. But
Yep.
let's go into Lysander. We're gonna start him off fresh.
The good news with starting with him is we go into his next chapter with him getting his ass beat.
Hell yes, we do.
He is getting destroyed. All his cockiness and thinking he can talk his way out of things just ends up with him being knocked out, a boot on his neck, and watching other people get murdered in front of him.
Yeah.
And it's so well deserved to see his actions come back and bite him.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah, we get to see him interact with Diomedes for the first time.
Mm-hmm. And we get introduced to Diomedes for the first time.
Yes. Yeah.
And, I mean, right away, I mean, again, it's Lysander explaining or describing him, but he comes off as very different to a lot of Gold in the sense of you can tell he's powerful with the way he carries himself, but not in a I think I'm better than you kind of way. Like, it seems much more wise compared to a lot of Golds that we've seen, even with just the little description.
Mm-hmm.
Self-assured, but not braggadocious.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And gets proven later on in the chapters when he basically takes on almost all of Dido's men by himself. I mean, he's got a couple people helping him, but he basically takes out like 3 or 4 people immediately before anybody really steps in.
Yeah, it also gives us one of like the most badass descriptions of somebody starting to fight. And it's, you know, when Diomedes begins to move, they begin to die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Cassius is I think that Cassius is one of the best swordsmen in the galaxy or in the universe, and obviously this guy puts him to shame almost.
Yeah.
Lysander says that both him and Cassius get disabused of the notion that Cassius is, up there right at the same time. They're just like, oh shit.
Yeah.
We get insect dogs. Oh, crud.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that one of my favorite things with Diomedes and all is the family interactions that we're seeing with this. As they're all kind of working against each other, and like, well, we find out that it is Seraphina who was out doing something that got herself captured that they then saved, and it's Romulus is the first to. Well, we get who's the one who's interrogating them to begin with.
Pandora.
Yeah.
The Cryptea.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Ghost of Ilium.
I mean, and they were all supposed to be
Got some cool ass names.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get so Romulus has shown up, and well, when Dido shows up, what do you say? It's like, you said you were going hunting. I didn't realize it was for daughters or whatever. Like, yeah, their whole family dynamic, like, they seem so close, but at the same time at complete odds with each other, that it is fascinating to just see how it all interacts and what they use against each other. Of you get Romulus telling Dido, like, you're from the core and we remember that, like, you're nothing without me.
But at the same time,
while also being like, this vaunted love story.
Yeah. Like, yeah.
It's definitely a weird relationship. Like, they're talked about as being the star-crossed lovers, but at the same time, they seem so at odds with each other.
Yeah.
But also still trying to protect each other at the same time. It's a weird relationship. And then even weirder with their kids. Like, it's a clear divide on who supports Romulus and who supports Dido.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you're on the wrong side, you're almost dead to that other person. Mainly on Dido's side,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I think the reason that that they split the way they do is like there's Romulus and Diomedes, who have both seen war like intimately.
mm-hmm.
We don't really know about Dido, but we know that Seraphina is super keen on war, but has never experienced it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we learned what Romulus lost in that war. He lost an arm, he lost an eye, he lost a son. Like, that's a lot to lose in one battle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it wasn't so much a war as just that one horrible experience.
And being on the winning side and still coming out with such a big loss, that's gotta be hard to swallow. Which is probably why he's not so keen to jump back into another war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of Seraphina, did it click with you right away that this is the little girl from Morningstar?
I did not pick up on that.
No. As soon as it said he called her Sarah, I was like, oh crap, that's what they called her in Morningstar, and I went back and looked.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a cool tie-in, but I mean, Pierce has done that multiple times where he plants a little seed only for them to come up books later.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Ephraim.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're not to him yet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fun.
Just you wait.
Yeah. Well, and even just this is not the first time we've seen Romulus, but the last time, and so we know a bit of his backstory and what he's sitting with the core, and it's funny to me on how we behind the scenes learn what has happened in what I am coining as the unwritten decade, that who they blame for the docks of Ganymede still and all of that. Like, there's still all of that little bit that is forming the relationship we're seeing thanks to Morningstar, but is not 100% being spelt out. We kind of have to slowly suss out, like, what does this look like for the last year, or 10 years, sorry.
A lot that ends up coming up in this chapter that gives like little pieces to what happens in the past 10 years. I will get to a little bit with Lyria. I really wish he would do something that gives more detail, because a lot of things happen in that 10 years that I would love to get more detail on.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be a Sons of Ares comic, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good call out that they could do a Sons of Ares for it. That would be fun.
Speaking of which, I think that read through is starting soon. It's supposed to be this month.
Yeah, in the den. Yeah, we're gonna
in the den.
I think it's at the end of this so that we could have a slight break in Lysander chapters. Is literally what people said. Is they want a slight break without Lysander. So, yeah. Join for that one if you're a Sons of Ares or haven't read them yet. We'll go through together. But yeah.
I know we always call Cassius a dolphin, but we can now call Lysander a lobster. We got a dolphin and a lobster.
Yes!
What a perfect way to Diomedes to teach him respect. I really wish he would have left him out there. But
God. So God. Yeah. Yeah, there was a few, I think somebody, it might have been Rocket in the den, we were joking about, different things of changing in the book or whatever comes out, and it's how Cassius should have just like flushed him out and left him there. Right? Like Cassius should have gone back and been like, actually, great idea, remove. Yeah.
But although he gets beat up a lot in these chapters, he is still so cocky. Like, he is trying to solve every problem, and no matter how many times Cassius tells him just to let them do whatever they're doing, or let him handle everything, he decides to jump in, and it just gets him further into deep water every single time.
Yeah.
And he doesn't learn. Even when he gets beat up or thrown out of a ship where he almost gets bride alive. It's so cocky. For no reason, too.
For no reason.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like, you are completely untested, completely unproven. Why do you think that you're so good?
Yeah. Like, as far as we know, he has never actually been, unless it's with the Escamani, like, he's never really been in a sword fight. Like, all he's got is what Cassius is teaching him. Like, he's just, I don't know, it'd be interesting. I'm a big nature versus nurture looking at, like, so with him, it's like, is that just because, like, naturally you're bred to think you're the best, and then nurture wise, from the first 10 years you were told basically you're going to inherit the whole solar system, but you would think then the next 10 years of being raised by the person who was also raised to, like, you will be the Prince of Mars, and look at how badly Cassius has fallen. Like, you would think you would get some hint of, like, hey, it's not actually gonna turn out the way you think it is. I don't know, it's a very interesting, like, why be so cocky when you've been, for the last 10 years, shown by somebody how far you can fall. Like, it's very interesting to me.
Because it'll never happen to him, that's why.
So it
has! Yeah. It technically happened to him at the age of 10. He got everything taken out from underneath him. Frick, man. We should have just let Severo kill him back in the day.
Don't disagree.
Severo was
right. Have the book.
Yeah,
That's
well,
true.
that was what the conversation was in Iron Gold, was someone was like, let's get rid of him, and I was like, let's just get rid of all conflict in Iron Gold. The whole series. Just have fishing trips and it'll be great. It'll be fine.
It just ends at chapter 3, the fantasy.
Yeah. That's it. That's all we need. Let's just cut Lysander out. And all conflict. It'll be fine, but...
Yeah. There's totally nothing else going on.
No. Everybody else will survive. It'll be fine.
And there's not a better villain that we get introduced to later on in these chapters anyway. That's better than Lysander.
Right?
In every way.
100% every way.
Yeah. Well, alright, let's keep going through Lysander so we can get to him.
Well, I guess if we go back to the very beginning with Pandora, you see how efficient they are as a unit. Like, there's zero waste. They come in, they subdue everyone. And immediately if someone tries to leave, she gets beaten by insect dogs, which sounds awesome, by the way. And you can see, even amongst Romulus's people, you have Pandora versus Diomedes, and there is this really big apprehensive, like, separation on how things should be handled. Like, Diomedes even mentions, I didn't know you knew, or you spoke for Romulus. And, like, she immediately backs away. And then he talks about giving her orders, and she was like, I didn't realize this was your ship. And then he apologizes immediately. It's a weird dynamic between those two.
Yeah.
We meet Vila again, Romulus' sister, which is the first time we've seen her since Morningstar, when she meets Darrow out in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
And again, pops in, and then we don't hear from her for the rest of these chapters at all. But
yeah, these ones for Lysander, it's just a lot of observation.
A lot of introduction.
Yeah, I really like it for the world building, because we get to see, in the same way Morningstar, we saw what the Rim looks like just a little bit, and now we're seeing that again, and kind of that setup. As we said, all of Iron Gold is set up and world building, but you do get more of a what makes the Rim different than the core.
Obsidians as slaves, basically. They're not separate. They have no association with Sephi's group whatsoever.
Yeah.
And Morningstar, you basically were all focused on Romulus. Now get the entire family, and you get a little bit into how their culture works. The shortage of, you have a daily ration of water. Once you're done, that's it. You can't use anymore.
Yeah, even if you spill your cup like a damn fool.
Mm-hmm. You have to have Diomedes come and be the honorable one and provide you one more cup.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's either in here or in Morningstar, but my brain doesn't work great, as we know. With the volcanoes being around, and we get to see, or is that Morningstar?
He briefly describes the landscape as
he's hanging out the bottom of the ship.
Right.
Yeah.
It's getting a real first-hand look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, I really like again that what this looks like and how it all vibes with everything else, and the breaking of whatever rules that are in place so that nobody is going into the rim, and all of that. Like, it's very interesting.
Protecting the Paxilium.
Yeah.
And how little some people seem to give a shit.
Yeah.
And this is where I think Romulus is wrong, because he wholeheartedly thinks that they are spies coming in, and that Darrow sent them. But they obviously know everything that's happening with Darrow, where he is being charged to be arrested. He's still in the middle of this war. So why would he then send somebody out to the rim, knowing that it has a chance for them to get caught and spark another war that now he has to fight two enemies? It makes zero sense that he would think that they're there for spies or to spy on them.
Part of me thinks, like, is it almost like a false flag that Romulus is trying to run? He's like, they sent spies, like, rather than being like, they're like saying that they're not, because it wouldn't make sense. And now there's another reason why they're here. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. It sounded better in my head, I think.
I was gonna say where we're going. Well, because like, as in Romulus is trying to create an excuse to join the war. Except for we just discussed that Romulus doesn't want in the war. Or is Romulus just that paranoid and not thinking it through, and perhaps believes that he, I don't know, I don't want to say is more important than he is, but that, like, oh yeah, they definitely are going to fight us as well at some point. Like, I wonder what that looks like, of if the Rim is standing there watching, wondering, when does this get to us? Like, what is that?
I guess them. I think oh, go ahead.
I think it could be that Romulus maybe trying to make sure that they're viewed as spies, and then it's like they get killed, like, now.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. It gives him a reason to kill them, because his honor would dictate if life for life is really how they view it. They did save Seraphina's life and should be rewarded that way, but if he calls them spies and that they're from the slave ring, kill them, and then he can still keep Seraphina locked away. Nobody knows that she left out. I think that's probably a good point.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes total sense.
But speaking of this video proof that she got, Darrow specifically mentions in Morningstar to erase everything. He seems the type of person that he would go and make sure that happened. And as far as that, like, we know who pulls the string way down the road, but we don't know how that recording still existed. Somebody on that ship didn't delete what they were supposed to delete. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that we ever find out who that was. But
not yet.
I was going to say, that makes me think something comes in Lightbringer, because there's a lot of things that happen in the future books that are left up in the air on how things were found out.
Right.
I know we can't go down this rabbit hole, but...
Yeah, and Crescent's not allowed to react in any capacity.
Hear me out
Crescent,
here. Hear me out here. I know, goddammit.
Do not react.
I'm going back to Morningstar.
Okay.
I'm the one keeping this on track. It could be because it seems to be from the view of a Valkyrie. Maybe she's just dog shit at tech.
Yeah.
And just couldn't. And
Yeah.
then somebody got a hold of it.
But we know it existed. And
we know it existed.
Yeah.
That's why they're out on that asteroid trying to find what was there.
Yeah, somebody in the den, I want to say Brackets, came up with a whole conspiracy theory that is it Amethea? Who's the pink? And that it's her somehow got it out, that because then the guilt of letting them on the bridge, like, it was a very interesting conspiracy theory, I would call it, of it being Amethea.
Oh, that pink, yeah.
That pink, Roke's pink, that opens the door for them. That then technically it domino effects. And so maybe she's then having second guesses and let something slip. But at the same time, there's so many people who would have been on that ship that could have, you know, not 100% given in and let at least words slip. Like, they're not going to be able to control everyone talking. Where this data file comes from, who knows? But there's got to be, I don't know how many people will run a ship, at least 100, if not 1,000, that would have been around.
8 kilometers. Or I guess that was on... Yeah, no, that was on the Colossus. An 8-kilometer ship. I would say there's probably several thousand. Because he says when they take the packs, something like venting 20,000 people.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that it's, 20 to 30,000.
Does the Colossus become Morningstar? Which one became... Okay.
So the Vanguard becomes the Pax, and then the Colossus becomes the Morningstar.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. But yeah, so it's out there somewhere that the Ganymede docks was not... Technically it was Victra, but let's not throw our girl under the bus just for helping share the load.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah, the Ganymede docks was an outside job.
Yeah.
And then Romulus ends up giving up. Dido comes in. Because Dido is basically pressing the razor into her chest that Diomedes is holding, and Romulus basically gives up rather than letting all the infighting continue. Mm-hmm. And that's where it ends.
Wouldn't that just have been a nice, simple solution to the problem? Just like, just let her kill herself on Diomedes' sword.
Mm-hmm.
Be kind of awkward, but
yeah,
serves purpose.
The confidence she has, that Dido comes in, the control over her husband, that they're clearly at odds, but she knows how, as we say, deeply in love with her, that she just can so emotionally manipulate to such an excess, is it's crazy.
It's as if she has a plan on how things will work out.
Yeah.
Yep.
That this might have probably have happened before, some of these little tiffs. That's kind of the image I get of this family, is they're very close-knit, but Thanksgiving is awkward, that they, get in these strange fights over, it's almost a power struggle within a couple. It's a strange...
And you're right, it's clearly
Sorry, go ahead.
It's clear that it's happened before, because when they're all talking about having to keep Seraphina, there's a big bombardment, and they think it's some outside force. And Romulus is like, your mother's coming. So clearly he's expecting some kind of attack from that side.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite is the...
part of me wonders is or is it that Dido is trying to part of the reason that there's so much infighting, that Dido is trying to prove that she brings just as much to the table as Romulus does, even though she's come from the core to be in the Rim.
Or maybe that's just what the Rim acknowledges as power, and that's what she's showing. Otherwise, she is just an alto, a Gaja, as I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we may as well move on from Lysander. This is
I was gonna say this has been brutal.
Please, go on.
Attempting. I really liked our attempt to do it, but we didn't even talk about Lysander. I feel like every time we do this, last week it was just let's talk about Cassius. Every time we're like, what if we don't talk about Lysander?
We talked about him getting beat up.
That's true. Look at us go.
Yep.
I mean, it's almost like Lysander doesn't have meaningful character growth.
It would seem that way.
It's not an arc. It is a very much flat line at this point.
He just gets cockier and cockier.
Wish we could flatline Lysander.
Put that on a t-shirt. All right, let's move on to Lyria. I feel like we've been dancing around talking about Lyria. Sure. Lyria has a fun chapter, and then a very anxiety-inducing chapter in this, as we're seeing her settling into her new world.
We see her fight Kavix to leave Mars.
Yep.
And I think that's the first chapter in this week's reading.
I thought that was last week.
Oh, is that maybe
last week?
Is that maybe 17?
Yeah. This is where we learn what she does for Kavix, which is a dog walker.
Yes.
And watching over Sophocles, because he's obviously going crazy all of a sudden because he's trying to kill all these Pachelbel birds.
I love. Well, and we learn that Sophocles somehow knows how to get off the leash.
Plays games.
Plays games. Yep. Sneaks and hides, and she knows to like. Yep. Yeah, he's gone crazy, and they all think it's, so she's got to collect the poop. She can't just throw it out. She has to collect it to take it back to. I really like that it's a doctor/vet.
Liago is his name, by the way.
Yeah.
Liago.
Yes. Yeah. But it is both will serve the humans and Sophocles.
Arguably more important than the humans.
Oh, 100%. But we do also learn that it is the 21st iteration of Sophocles. Because someone says like, oh yeah, Sophocles is 700 years old, just in the 21st life, and you'd get a little crazy too if your genes are being split that much.
Maybe it's not crazy. Maybe he's just a genius.
He is a genius.
Maybe he's pulling a Kavix on everybody.
I think so. We can't talk why, but we do learn that Sophocles is far smarter than we get credit for.
We get further proof on how wonderful the Telemanus family is.
Yes.
Kavix learns that Lyria doesn't know how to read, and he's like flabbergasted. Stories are like how the world turns, and so he starts teaching her how to read. We get some input from the other servants within the house that have been with their family for generations and just have glowing reviews. We have one specifically that talks about how one of the Reds killed this beast for Kavix's father. Can't remember his name. And then gets all this. Thank you. Gets all this money, and then blows it all out, and then he's left it nowhere. And so he brings him back into the fold. No harm, no foul.
Yeah, we just get lots of what we've always known about the Telemanus is just tenfold proven to us. It's just so great.
we literally get it spelled out. That these are the paragons of humanity.
Yeah. Liam is in a school so that he's safely away, and Lyria, I think, gets to go 3 times a week to see him.
Yep.
And so you know that Liam is being well taken care of and educated, and yeah, they're just phenomenal.
Yep. We learn the repercussions of what happens after Wolfgar's been killed. We find out
Yes.
that hell is starting to break loose back on Luna now.
Yep. Yeah, that's the cool thing, I think, of Lyria's point of view, is it's a different... It's kind of our first view that we're seeing of a different angle of Darrow. Because at this point, Lysander is obviously so far removed. And Ephraim is a little bit removed. But Lyria, she can hear the whisperings of the Telemanises. Like, she is in that world a little bit. They're obviously not, fully open and telling her everything. But she is still within that court, if you will. And seeing the little bubbles that are coming across because of what's happened. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and we get another, like a very much opposite view of Darrow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Darrow loves the shit out of himself. And Lyria kind of fucking hates him.
Yeah. Yeah. We get, a little bit on, but especially when she's drunk with Philippe, we learn of, especially where that is, of like, he doesn't remember he's a red. He believes he's a gold. He was supposed to save us. Where is our paradise? Like, that anger is really coming out. She does not like Mustang because, no, we've just traded one gold for another. Like, she was supposed to promise us all these things and these false hopes. And you're starting to really get that. Yeah, we see when she's in... So she gets to go to Hyperion.
Hyperion, yeah.
And go through the museum and see, everything there, and just even when she's there, that anger that's coming out of, this is my past, it's not yours, where they're in front of the red screen and there's, all of the what had happened, and she's very much like, this is my history, this is not yours, kind of an idea. Yeah, we see a lot of that anger and how what the Rising has done of not necessarily taking care of the people that it claimed to, and where those emotions are now coming out.
People are trying to do the right thing, because one of the places you go to that's very reminiscent of the Holocaust, and like the Room of Shoes, just a bunch of red sigils, and a gold boy goes to try and comfort a red family. Like, she immediately, it's like, she didn't say it to them, like she ends up leaving, but she's super pissed that he is encroaching on this section that should not belong to him, even though he's doing it with the best intentions, or at least it comes across that way.
I think there's a couple, like, there's two things that you're mixing there. So that the little gold boy runs out onto the sigils, just like gets away from his parents. And then
I thought he was going to.
And then there's just the red guy breaks down, and then all of these reds come in and start comforting him, and Lyria kind of still feels like on the outside of it.
Mm-hmm.
She I think it says she feels basically too awkward to like go and comfort this guy.
Yeah, but yeah, there's read that as he was trying to comfort the red that broke down. Okay, that makes a lot more sense why she would be upset then. I just misinterpreted that. We get a really, it's brief, but this scale of the city. Like, she talks about how, like, there's multiple levels, and the one that she's on, you can look down into basically the dregs of the city, where you can physically see the pollution in the air.
Yeah.
So I actually got a message from Quickstep today, and she's like, so, like, is Hyperion the city that's like all leveled up? And I'm like, well, I think pretty much all of Luna is like that. But yes, like Hyperion definitely is. And she sent me a link to the Wikipedia page of the Hyperion redwood, the tallest known tree in the world.
That's a good.
It's like
connection.
119 meters or something.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know, like neither of us knows whether it's actually a reference, but it wouldn't shock me. Like
there's a lot
that's
of things
nearby.
connected.
That's nearby where Pierce is.
Pierce, is that a reference? Is that a reference, Pierce?
He connects to Pacific Northwest a lot, so that would make sense.
Interesting.
The redwoods are in California, though, aren't they?
Yeah, they're northern.
They go all the way up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Northern California and then up. Yeah.
Gotcha. But then also, I likened Hyperion and the cities on Luna to be very much like Coruscant, where it's just like, a city planet.
Yeah.
Now, we know obviously that Luna has sections where it's not city, but that's definitely how I picture Hyperion and like Lost City, and that sort of thing. Like, very much like Coruscant.
Yeah.
And then we get the really interesting scene with the gray policeman.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is an intense scene.
Well, that whole leading up to that, my anxiety today was on edge. Like, I almost stopped listening because I was just like, I gotta go take a Xanax and then I'll return to this, because obviously we know that she's innocent. Lyria's innocent, not the Gold Woman. But just the way she's laying into her and how there is no change. Like, the Gold Woman just fully believes that, like, no, I am still above you. And you can see that of, and we'll get to Ephraim later, where we've seen there's a part in his of, it's still the reds and the obsidian that are being kind of, they're still the bottom of the barrel. And we see in this that it's just these, like, they run in packs. They're this, like, these rusty, like, the rusters, the off-worlders. And she's using everything. I don't think the Gold Woman uses ruster. She's using, though, every other word. She does say ruster? Okay.
Yeah.
But it's like she's, like, she's clearly Martian. Her mouth sounds like she's eating mud. Like,
full of mud, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, she just lays into her, and this, like, do you not know who I am? And just everyone just goes along with it because, well, yeah, that's who you are going to agree with. And, like, oh, it was difficult for me to read it today. I had to.
Yeah, there's definitely a parallel there, with
real life.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, exactly. With cops and basically assuming that people of color are up to no good, basically, and
because Red's running back
the other bullshit, yeah.
Then this one obviously was doing the same thing, even though we really know it wasn't. And then even everybody else, you had the green and the silver who didn't see anything, let's be honest, because obviously they would known, but they immediately pile on and like just I saw her do it. Let me give you my
exactly.
take. It's
there's definitely some real world parallels that we're seeing in this. I think in this whole thing of, somebody, I instantly looking at, the moment she gets to the city, it's that tourist feeling.
Oh, right? Absolutely.
She is that
it's like she's walking in with her little backpack.
Yeah, she's that small town girl that gets plunked in the middle of New York City or London or like Tokyo, like wherever, and just, I've got to see the world, and like, the coffee shop and the descriptions and everything. It's such a, like, when you're traveling and you're in a brand new place and you want to make it look like you fit in. Like, I've definitely been, tourism, traveling, being a tourist, and it's only half gone, I swear. And wanting of like, no, like I can make it seem like I belong here, and that quick turnaround of you don't necessarily know what's happening, and you can't necessarily navigate the streets in the same way a local would. And then we're seeing with, this run-in with the police that she has no idea how to navigate this situation because it is so out of her realm of,
and like it escalates so fast.
So fast.
Like they ask her for ID, and she quickly reaches into her jacket to grab her ID, and they assume she has a gun.
Yeah.
And so she all of a sudden is now staring down the barrel of a gun.
Yeah.
Even though she was trying to give them what they were asking for.
Yeah.
And she freezes. Like, what do you do in that situation?
Yep. Well, exactly.
Yeah.
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 And then, like, obviously doesn't get a chance to explain.
No.
Just gets slapped in cuffs and thrown in the back of the shuttle.
Yeah, well, and they also automatically assume that she's stolen the ID that puts her as one of the, like, working for the Talamanis. Like, they're like, well, she stole that as well, because there's no way that
I think it's the gold woman that says that. She probably stole the ID, too.
And then comes along, which you hear all the time nowadays, where if she did it, she should obviously lose her job. What do you think is going to happen if she no longer has the job? She's going to then revert to what you're accusing her for.
Yeah.
So obviously that's not the best method. It's such a great scene for just a small part, and the parallel to real life. He wrote that extremely well.
Yes.
And then she gets saved by Philippe, a nice gray gentleman.
Yeah.
Yep.
Stranger just decides to, come out of the woodwork, good Samaritan, and just claim that he knows her and knows how to talk to the Greys in such a manner that they just, okay, fine, like, she's in your care then. Yep.
Were you clued in at all who Philippe was at this point when you first read it?
No, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
No.
I didn't at this point. The second meeting, things started triggering a little bit more. But no, not on this first meeting. I was like, that's a nice gentleman.
Yeah.
Yeah, how nice Lyria's made a friend.
Yeah.
That's
and actually, it says that right at the end of the chapter.
Yes, that she says she goes to bed not thinking about Mars, but that she finally made a friend.
I think it was Alcatraz mentioned something about that specifically in the Iron Gold chapters. How it starts off with such a great ending, like I made a friend, and then you find out who it really is later on, and it's like, aw.
Yeah. But I think also, like, us as the reader, like, as I said, my anxiety's through the roof, and then you suddenly have this person helping that you just, like, it makes sense that she just puts full support, because what else am I gonna do? This is now, and he shows her the city, and you get that kind of local, like, let me actually teach you how to survive in this environment. So you do, even as the reader, put full support because you want to believe that something is going good for her. Like,
He takes care of her. He listens to her.
Yeah.
He's the first person to ask about.
Yeah.
First person to ask the name of her dead family. Nobody else has ever asked about it. And she even mentions, not in a way that comes off as pitying, like he actually wants to know. And he even mentions that. I'm glad I'm the first person to be able to ask you that.
Yeah. Yeah, so we get, but this is then where we were saying earlier, we can see her hate for Darrow and Mustang. Of, they're walking through and there's the statue of Darrow. And she just, rips into him.
This is also where we learn that Dancer is the one that liberated her mind. We get a hint of that, but she fully confirms it.
Yes.
And then we also learn that Orion got her parrot, because there's a statue of her with the parrot on her shoulder.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
We never meet the parrot, but...
We never never meet the parrot. I love that. I love it. Yeah. Yeah, there's some really, like, at the end of that really tough couple of scenes with Lyria, she gets a happy ending, and where we're ending it for today, we get a happy ending for now.
Yeah, we get a happy middle.
We get a happy middle. Let's just, leave her with her newfound friend, going back to clean up Sophocles' poop, which at the end of the day, I would clean up Sophocles' poop if I could hang out with Sophocles. So
it's probably full of jelly beans.
That's true.
Not to, like, completely go back, but yeah, like, I feel like there is no nutritional value to... well, we know Sophocles at least had the chicken wing the one time, so clearly eats other food.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, they should really think about that fox's diet if they're gonna think it's crazy. Like...
Well, they're gonna keep cloning them, so it's probably fine.
Anything that kills him, I'm sure they can implement to where he's not killed by it in future iterations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of jumping back, we know at the very beginning where she's chasing Sophocles, she ends up going into a jam bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there is a gray man and a copper man, but we don't actually hear what any of it is.
Yeah.
It's very mysterious.
Yeah.
My first read through, I thought it was Holiday because she comes around.
I did too.
But it specifically says that it's two men.
Yeah.
So I'm curious who they are.
Yeah. And good on Lyria to be like, not my business. She just leaves.
Yeah.
She's like, ugh, this is awkward.
And then immediately runs into Holiday.
Yeah.
And it's described
like literally
that she is a cement block of a woman. Like,
yeah.
That's got to be the worst description you can give anyone.
Poor Holiday. She's not having a good go this time round.
No.
All right. Any final thoughts on Lyria? Okay, go.
Do you think Holiday is still nursing a hangover when she runs into Lyria?
Yes.
Ooh.
Well,
we don't really know how long it's been since Ephraim and her got into that bottle when she runs into her.
I would say no, only for the fact that we know that she runs away because she finds out through her data pad that when Darrow is being charged to be arrested, and she ends up going to meet Darrow. I don't think it's this. No, it's not in this chapter. In the last couple ones, where they talk about what the next.
Oh yeah,
to join
at the den. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she was sober then, so I guess she could still have a hangover, but we don't know how cheap that whiskey was.
Yeah.
I think we do. I think they talk that the vodka is so cheap that you can taste the plastic from the bottle.
Yep, that's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Russian Prince. That's what it was.
All right. Last thoughts on Lyria?
No, I think it was pretty good chapters for her.
Yeah, we've
get a little bit more insight into a lot of what's happening with her life.
Yeah. And then Ephraim, who is kind of brief in these section. It's a big section, but it's fewer chapters than the rest. I should word it as.
Yes,
I think he's got 2 or 4 chapters.
Yeah.
He's got
2, 3.
Duke of Hands, Kobachi's, and
the one where he talks with the steam.
Other one. Oh yeah.
So we meet Ephraim. So last we left Ephraim, he's being kidnapped or assaulted.
Knocked out by a fist the size of a small dog.
Yep. And now we are somewhat awake, conscious, and with the Duke of Hands.
Who comes off as a very scary bastard in this chapter.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating to me. Like, I was reading this. He's terrifying. He is this criminal, like, mastermind. Well, whatever. He runs part of the syndicate, and yet he's a pink. And so thinking of the physicality of a pink, that they are smaller than most, they're fragile than most, they are well dressed and fashionable. Like, it is a very interesting dichotomy there of the scary, good looking criminal mastermind. Like,
it's probably very good looking. I'm thinking. I do love the fact that when he describes him, his hair is blown straight up, and all I could think of was Marge Simpson. So I just imagine Marge Simpson talking to Ephraim.
I'm imagining the Muppet, and I can't remember.
Beaker?
Beaker, yeah, I think it's Beaker.
That's the one.
I know my Muppets.
He says meat. That's all he says is meat. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, we meet Gorgo as well, this brutal obsidian man who is probably the guy with the fist the size of a small dog.
Yep.
Yep. And the thickest grill.
Yep. But this chapter, I mean, there's lots of reasons why I love Ephraim, but he's such a smartass and very quick on his feet. I think you're 100% what you said in the last podcast, that he's obviously a hurt person that likes to hurt people. But he is in a very shitty situation, but he immediately knows what's happening and is still cracking jokes. Like, he talks about how basically Gorgo has a dick in his mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not something you want to say to a man that could punch you once and probably die.
Yeah.
But the dude comes across very smart. Like he obviously is very aware of his fragility, but has the brains to, one, control the obsidian's control. But I'm trying to remember where I wrote this down. There's a lot of, like, he doesn't even have to say his name. Like, he was like, say my name. Like, you know who I am. I'm not going to tell you who I am. You know who I am. I want you to tell me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cat. And the other thing that I really like is they talk about the body language and how he knows how to manipulate, other people based on, like, this is your body language. This is what.
Yeah.
Cat.
Yeah. Yeah, but, the shadow dance.
Yeah. Yeah, like, it's a very cool insight of how pinks work and how they were educated and all of that, and how he can continue to use that to his advantage.
That's the classic line: a debt is owed and a debt must be paid.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think we've seen this anywhere else. And again, as much as I've read this, is the first time that it's really clicked with me, is he has like a hidden tattoo that he can make appear on his forehead that tells that he works for the syndicate. And I'm curious if everybody that is in the syndicate has it, or just the higher ups.
Ooh.
I would guess that it's probably just the Dukes.
Yeah. But at the same time, why is that there? Like, he has the a cephalopod on his cane.
Yeah.
On the octopus.
Is it the Kraken?
Yeah, I guess you could say it's a Kraken.
You could maybe say it.
We found our Kraken. Yeah, it's just, again, very cool world building in this. We learn more and more about what the syndicate does and the 4 people that work under the Queen, and that, how crime is kind of being committed, and how Ephraim is working within this, of who his clients are, and when it's that he is stolen from them, and what that looks like, of how it trickles down. And he doesn't necessarily know who is hiring him to, do whatever. Because we do learn that after, good on Ephraim, he does not rat anybody out. He refuses to talk. He has his honor intact, and for that gets to keep his hand. And we do learn that the person who sent him, in theory, to steal from the Duke of Hands was the Duke of Hands.
Yeah, we get to see Ephraim's got some real titanium testes.
Yeah.
He does.
Like, goddamn.
Like, he's got the bones all over it. And he's like, tell me. He's like, get on with it, asshole. Like, just do it.
Exactly.
We learn that there's two other dukes. We have the Duke of Legs and the Duke of Tongues.
Yep.
And I think this is our first mention of the Queen of the Syndicate as well. I'm pretty sure.
I think so, yep.
I think so, yeah.
And we start getting a lot of little hints of the trauma that Ephraim has gone through. Like, he constantly talks about how he hears the screams of his team. We don't really know what that is yet, but we get little hints that something has happened to him before that might be the reason he is the way he is.
Yeah.
At least part of it, anyway.
And then we also learn we get two other names, other thieves that are on his level, Figment and Zendrick. I'm curious if we'll see any of those two.
Yeah, it'll be... There's a lot of cool little plot point drops in this that I think it took at least my second read through to fully understand what was happening, because I think it's almost like a lot of information all at once that I didn't pick up on the first time I read through.
And now we find out he's being forced to basically join the Syndicate, even though he talks about that he would never do it. He is essentially pushed into it.
Yeah. Well, and that leads us to the conversation with the rest of his team, that they're also technically being forced, and we learn, what that relationship looks like, the inner bickering, how they all spend their money, and they don't want to do it, and they're trying to come up with different ways to escape it. And at the end of the day, you just learn that basically the Syndicate is so powerful, it does not matter what you do, you're not getting away from them.
Yep.
Yeah, if you say no, you end up in the gutter the next morning with an octopus in your mouth.
Yeah.
Like, that's quite the statement.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
We also learned that Volga is parsimonious as a white.
I love Volga.
Spending a little bit of money at the zoo, and
that is the most adorable. And we learn that the reason she hoards her money is because she basically wants her own animal sanctuary. Like,
yep. Ransom's our Volga.
Yes. Ransom in the Den loves capybaras and wants a capybara sanctuary, and she's definitely Volga. Yeah, and she's just really cute that she even feels ashamed when she's like, well, I go to the zoo and I go on the cheap days, like I go in the
and I have to eat more than you.
Yeah.
I go in the middle of the weekdays when it's cheap.
Yeah, but then she's like, I have to
pay rent, and
yeah. But her landlord,
and my landlord says
her.
I'm the best tenant he's ever had.
Yeah, she's just so pure, which is I think why I continue to Ephraim gets points at this point because the rest of them are like, great, we'll just live off Volga's money. And Ephraim really is like, screw you, that's hers. But at the same time, I'm like, why were you so mean to such a pure person? Like, she's just, I love her so much.
Because he can get away with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what she can do? Be verbally abusive back?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't think Volga knows how to be verbally abusive.
No.
She's very different than any Obsidian we've ever come across to this point.
Yeah.
And she's the one, though, at this point who does stick up of, like, you're going to do it because he saved this person from this and this person from this. And we learned that, like, she was a docker and he came and saved her from that. And so that's why you're all going to do it, because he's got your back and pulled you out of this. So you've got to have his. Like, she does have that little bit of honor to her and can stand up for that for Ephraim. I don't think she can stand up for herself, but she can stand up for Ephraim at least. But yeah.
I like that we get a little bit more Dano, and we learn his last name is Sunshine, which Ephraim mentions how awful it is.
I told him it was stupid.
But better than Starfall.
Sunshine or Starfall, yeah.
And I mean, the best line is when they're talking about what they have to do, and he's like, "And that's manic, and not in a sexy way." I'm like, "Yes, that's so good."
Yeah.
We also learn. Well, do you have an idea of what is being asked to be stolen at this point at all?
No, I had no idea.
Yeah, no.
I know there's 0 hints.
Nothing.
And
we learn at some point someone says something about it'll cripple the Republic, or it'll do something like that's the one line we get, that it's clearly against the Republic.
Yeah, but you still don't know what it is. And without spoiling what it is, 80 million credits to do what they did does not seem like enough money.
No.
It's a suicide mission. That's what they talk about. 80 million credits.
Yeah.
If I'm doing this.
Well, 80 million divided, right? It's not 80 million each.
80 million total, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like what?
Yeah.
20 million. Like, no, man.
Mm-mm.
No.
And so then we move to Kabachi's Tech Emporium, and we'll get a little bit more world building.
Yeah. And this is where I mentioned earlier with the sign. There's no obsidian and there's no red. And and Volga ends up, Ephraim pretty much forces Volga in, which she doesn't want to, because she's like, no, like, it's not worth my fight. I will hang out here. And he's like, nah, you're coming in. And you learn of, like, the red steal and the obsidian break things. Like, that's the mentality here of, like, no.
If she was a red, she'd steal shit. If she was a brown, she'd clean shit. And if she was an obsidian, she'd break shit.
Yeah.
But we see Ephraim stand up for her again, because Kabachi comes out and was like, obviously you don't know how to read. And he's like, Volga likes toys. Volga will look at toys, and you will be happy that we're here.
Yeah, and then he flashes the Iron Rose, and Kabachi's like, oh, fuck. Mm-hmm. So obviously this is a widely known, maybe not widely known, but in the shadier circles, a very well-known indicator that somebody is on syndicate warrant.
We get further proof on the reach that the syndicate has, because Ephraim talks about telling Gorga he wants a gravity well just to see if they could do it, and he was like, you'll have it in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We also learned that Lord of the Rings canon exists in the universe.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
With the Hollow of Osgiliath.
Yeah.
Ephraim's voice actor is so good. Just with Ephraim, but with Kabachi himself, he comes across as like this really eccentric green that he is. And how offended he gets when somebody asks for refunds. Like he whispers it.
They even ask for
refunds. And then we get a little glimpse of the Omnivore at this point and what it does.
Oh, yeah.
Which sounds like the most badass gun.
Cool ass gun.
Yeah.
Metal goes in, death comes out. But how does he get it? I know we don't. Well, I guess not a spoil. We don't ever find out how he gets it. I don't believe.
Not specifically, but I think it's he probably or he pilfered it during a claims investigation.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I think that's about where it ends.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all there is for Ephraim chapter.
I don't know. People hate on Ephraim, and I think why I like him is his sense of humor is very similar to mine. He's very quick. He's I marked it in the book. The very first line, and I think that's what drew me in, was I yawn in the humid dark, craving a burner because the vapor inhaler I'm sucking on is about as satisfying as fucking through a tarpaulin sheet. I'm like, that is such a good intro to who.
Very descriptive.
Yeah.
Yes. He is an asshole, but you could tell there's a reason he is the way he is, and obviously we get more detail as this character arc goes on. But I just love how he's a smartass all the time, but smartass in like a street smarts way. He knows what he's talking about. He knows what he gets himself into, and it's a great defense mechanism, and obviously works for him.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm still Alcatraz and I know are from last week still in shit that I don't know. I still can't. It's. I think it's his abuse of Volga. It's his abuse of Holiday. I still, especially at this point, he has no real redeeming qualities for me that I can get behind him.
I wish I had the memory of how I felt when I very first, like, just Iron Gold.
Yeah.
Because his arc through the book so far is fantastic, but I don't quite recall if I liked him as much as I did in just reading Iron Gold as versus reading both books.
Yeah. Because even in, we won't say what's happening in the next few chapters that we learn from him, but I think he's even, and I get why he's doing it, and we can't go into it. It's got to do with the heist, and we won't spoil what that mission is, but I get why he's doing it, but I still can't get on his side. I don't know. As you say, I think it takes me until, if he survives into Dark Age, maybe.
No, I think I spoiled that one already.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's fine. But, yeah, Iron Gold could not get behind him.
I don't know. I just think he speaks to my inner asshole. I'm not one, but I have it inside of me. It just doesn't come out. And I think he's just my conduit that I live through, I guess. Because I can't be that mean to people, even if I wanted to be.
We know I'm the mean moderator in the den, so, I can be, and I still can't get behind him.
I wouldn't say mean. You have to keep people in line,
I'm
especially when we're talking about
moderator.
You can't talk in Orion's Helm. That is strictly for rank only. I've personally been kicked out of there.
Yeah.
By you.
This is a total side note for just everyone who's only Howler's Den. I think the best thing, so for those who are not Howler's Den, we have a million channels. If you want a server that's got channels, we have you covered. But when Orion's Helm was created, I was the one who called it the trash channel and was like, we do what we want in there. It's the trash channel. And then suddenly the moderators had this discussion of like, it needs to stop being the free-for-all channel. And now I'm the one who's like, everybody out of Orion's Helm. And yet I'm the one who coined it the trash channel. And I'm the one who now has to be like, everybody out. We're talking too much in here.
Created it so you can rightfully take it away. Gotcha.
Yeah. I'm the first rose in the official rose in the den now because I leveled up today. So I've also laid claim to the rose garden and for the first time ever had to lay down the law in there today.
Did you? I finally hit level 10 like 2 days ago.
You're a ruster.
Oh yeah.
Crescent, you're low red.
Don't worry, Hawking. I'm still a ruster.
Are you still a ruster?
I don't feel as bad now because I have not been able to be in there as active as I was initially. And so I just see all these people going ahead of me on the leaderboard.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I can be a ruster. That's fine.
Yeah, some of us are a little too. We need to touch grass and we don't. That's my issue.
Very true.
Yeah.
As long as you're happy, that's all that matters.
Yeah. Last thoughts on Ephraim? I think we're pretty good there.
I will die on the hill that he's the best character in all of Red Rising.
It sounds like Pierce is on your side with that, seeing how he.
Yeah, he said he was
him on a pleasure
his favorite
cruise.
one to write.
Yeah.
I think that is Pierce 100%. That's him writing himself into the book.
Interesting. Yeah.
He obviously, it's similar to me. Like, I think he has that inner asshole, but he obviously can't, especially being on the platform that he is. So I think that's how he bends out his inner dialogue is through Ephraim.
Is Ephraim abusing Volga, Pierce abusing Blair?
Oh, 100%. Oh my god! And then Blair's got all of her little rescued animals. Oh my god, we're figuring this all out. We've cracked it. Volga is Blair.
And Pierce is Ephraim.
And Pierce is Ephraim. We're on to you. We cracked it. Alright, last point of view. The big one for this section. Lots of action. We finally get, I would say, our action in this book. It's Darrow.
Yeah, we get our first, like, real fight scene.
Yeah.
I mean, the chapter is called
There will in fact be violence.
But right away, you immediately see the difference in being dads between Darrow and Severo. We get a little hint of that when they first come back, but immediately you see how different they view their roles.
100% that it is. The reason we go back to the Citadel, or the estate, is because Severo wants to see the girls.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not leaving without seeing them. And so it's a 2-hour ride to go back. So they go, and Darrow says something about, like, oh, I'll come with you. And Severo's like, yeah, I'm going with you. And Severo's like, you've got a
you got to say goodbye to your boy.
Yeah, like, and you just, rather than Darrow really would prefer to dip in the night and not have to worry about it. And Severo, needs to see his girls. And then to give Darrow credit, he does a really good job of it. He gets Pax out of bed, show me the bike, let's go for a ride. Like, he does have a very, what should be a core memory moment.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, they talk about that in the last section, where Mustang's like, there should be thousands of these. Like, this dinner shouldn't be something that I'll remember forever. It's something that there should be thousands of. And I feel like that's very much the same thing. Is like, yeah, he now has this core memory of Pat, and there should be thousands.
And you find out which I love, how Pax is being raised with the whole unit, right? That Mustang will not just give over the money. So where'd you get the money? Aunt Victra. Aunt Victra has put him on an interest of 60%. So would you start owing 500 credits? What do you owe now? 1,100.
And then he laughs just like you're doing, and he's like, "Oh, I forget how easily."
And it's like immediately Pax withdraws, and he's like, "Oh, I forget how easily I can affect his confidence."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, you learn just somebody is who takes him to all the junk. It's Niobe, doesn't she? She's who takes him to the junkyards.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I think it's Niobe.
Yeah,
like, you just are learning that they're raising him as such a family unit with all these different people, even if it is Victra just swindling him out of money. And Darrow's not there to even know how this is happening. Like, there's not even a story. Yeah, like, you would think at some point there would be a phone call between father and son of, like, hey, Dad, today I borrowed 5,000 credits from Aunt Victra. Like,
That's what these chapters show, is there is a very clear divide between Darrow and the Reaper. And when he is in the Reaper mode, he is a singular force. Like, he even talks about it when Victor is trying to convince him to keep Severo here. like you hear the desperation of how much Darrow wants to end the war, and that is like all his focus, and like he is the Reaper, and then you see him get pulled out of that when he's with Pax, and he becomes Darrow the father, and you can see how caring he really is. That's got to be a hard thing to balance, and obviously he doesn't do it well.
Yeah.
But you see the divide that comes across between those two people, even though it's the same person.
Yeah.
And he even mentions that, and this kind of goes back to Morningstar, that he thinks he is just a breaker. He doesn't think he has it in him to be a builder.
Yeah.
And that was the whole part of Morningstar, whether Mustang would be with him.
Yeah.
So he seems to have reverted back. You also really, I think this is probably the first time that it comes across that while the Howlers are loyal, they are not on the same page like they normally are. Like there is a clear divide, and obviously it gets further explored as we get into the chapters of them going deep grave. Like they're along for the ride, but I don't think they agree with what they're doing.
Yeah.
Which we haven't seen before at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a few hard chapters, and it's kind of, I think, really the first time that we as the reader are not agreeing 100% with Darrow. We are seeing, like, we at this point know that Mustang is smarter than Darrow, and, you know, all the time he should just start running ideas by her, and he never does, because he doesn't learn. But this is a clear one of, you know, we get their touching moment where he doesn't want to say goodbye. Well, he doesn't want to see her. Not he doesn't want to say goodbye. He does not want to see her. And she has to be the whistleblower, which is the smart move on her half.
Oh, absolutely.
He should not have put her in that position and should have just gone to trial and held it up. Like, he just digs himself more of a grave, and he's just putting the divide that we're on Severo's team at this side of why, like, I'll go with you, but I don't agree. And we again see that throughout this of like there's got to be a better way, that just nobody agrees with his plan, nobody agrees with anything he's doing. And it's kind of us as the reader the first time we're really saying like, Darrow, like, what the fuck?
And we see the repercussions of that happens when the Lion Guard is called, which, like you said, Mustang does the right thing.
Yeah.
I do think it's an oversight on Mustang's part when we find out that the guards that come, you have ones that have worked directly with Darrow in past wars. Seems like you probably shouldn't have people that could be loyal to him if you're trying to arrest him.
So I don't think that Mustang would have had control over that specifically, because those weren't Lion Guards, they were wardens. And theoretically, because their blue cloaks fold up into their armor, I don't think she has control over them.
Could be Wolf Guard
like
people.
General control, probably.
Yeah, it's like Wolf Guard.
I don't think it was a Mustang error.
Yeah, but then maybe Wolf Guard's error.
Yeah, either way. That's we talked about that. We had a very brief out of context this week, just because we did it so early in the week and there's only a few people. But Badger brought up a fabulous kind of analysis of what happens in that moment. Of Darrow can call over and say, "Who fought with me here? Who fought with me here? And who fights with me today?" And gets two of them on his side. Like, it is a very interesting moment of his charisma, and we had a great conversation about what that looks like with real world people and how charismatic, you know, some of these conquerors or warlords, if you will, still can hold that much control over people that they immediately flip. Right? Like,
and they pay the price because they both get murdered.
Yeah,
by Wolf Guard.
yeah, Wolfgar and those two are the only wardens that die.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The other... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, no, continue, because mine's kind of like an off-topic thing. You're good.
The other conversation that we had with Badger about Wolfgar and Darrow fighting, first of all, it shows how, like, otherworldly good Darrow is compared to any of these people. He's not in armor.
Jacket.
Yeah, exactly. He's in a leather jacket, and, like, sure, he takes some hits, but, like, he basically deconstructs this entire squadron of fully armored wardens, and, you know, basically he says that Wolfgar is one of very few people alive that could keep him from something, and at least for a bit. And then we see exactly how true that is as he just absolutely takes Wolfgar apart. He's like not worried in the slightest, not fighting hard. He's digging the roots. And then Badger brought up that the way that Darrow fights Wolfgar is extremely, extremely reminiscent of the way that Aja fights Ragnar. And like written very similar even. And I think it was Rocket that said he was going to
he's going to do a
basically
line by line.
break down those fight scenes side by side and compare them.
Yeah, I think both of them that stick out is he talks about, I see the end coming a few moves before it actually happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you know if I assume Pierce is a huge nerd? Do you know if he's ever played World of Warcraft?
Yes, he has.
So I think
you would know that.
Was that too quick on the answer there?
No,
I should have thought about it for a moment.
The only reason I bring it up is because when he mentions the new armor that all the wardens were wearing, he calls it SI7, which is a very specific group within one of the in Stormwind. They're called the SI7 agents, and I'm curious if that's where he got that from, or just.
I bet you it's a reference. Send that one to him so it'll make him smile.
SI Sun Industries.
Yeah. Okay, that was my off the cuff one. I just was curious if.
Oh, yeah.
My thought. It wouldn't surprise me.
Oh,
yeah,
because everything's a reference. But
everything's a reference. That's what we're learning.
But yeah, Wolfgar dies in a very brutal fashion with a razor through the mouth, and
Mustang immediately. It's the Mustang. Darrow, what have you done? Mm-hmm. Right, like because she is witnessing this. And it's what have you done?
I mean, the Obsidians already aren't talking to her. Now you have a very well-known figure that is now killed by Darrow. They're definitely not talking to you anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Darrow even says, like, the repercussions of this will echo across the Republic.
Yeah. Yeah. And Severo comes out and is pissed. Yeah. And Severo feels it, that he says, like, he thinks it's his fault, basically. Assuming because
it is his fault.
they went back so Severo could see his girls.
There's no reason for him to shoot the shot.
Wolfgar wouldn't have died if Severo hadn't shot him.
There was no reason to shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like, he knows Darrow can take apart pretty much anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, damn it, Severo.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of that he shot is he is starting to see Darrow become more and more the Reaper, and so maybe he thinks that he doesn't have the control and might actually kill Wolfgar, and so he's trying to save that from happening.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, that's never illicitly explained, so.
Yeah.
Another good question for Pierce.
Yeah. I need to become best friends with him so I can ask all my questions.
Who's got the dinner in Tulsa? We need to find out who has those, we believe, 2 remaining seats.
We don't need the seats. Look, we're gonna have most of the den there.
Just saying here, Skipper and I are both gonna be in Tulsa, so if you guys have the dinners and can't make it,
we will take one for the team. We're doing this for you, and then we have the means to report back in a very public manner of what occurred. You give that ticket to somebody else, and they're going to keep all that information to themselves. We can do the fandom a big favor if you give us those tickets.
Or if you want to keep the ticket, tell us where it's at. We'll have the whole den come and crash that thing. He's not going to kick us all out.
This is when a hardcore security goes out.
That's right.
They've already got to have hardcore security set up for that. I'm just, yeah.
You would think so.
I think I would get one meeting with Pearson, and he would never talk to me again because I would just be throwing questions at him on.
No, he would love that.
Dude, you saw how into it he was.
Yeah, he loves that shit.
Or just give me your notebooks of where you keep all your notes. You don't have to ask them. I'll just read them all.
Yeah.
So now we go to Deep Grave.
Recovering from that to Deep Grave.
we go to the fishing ship.
Oh my god! Okay, at some point, I think I want to say it was like episode 2 of Fade to Obsidian. I yelled, "Why has he never given me a boat? Give me a damn boat!" And I totally forgot this scene fully exists. I got a boat. It's cool. I'm happy. But boat off of Greenland, off of what I think is our only reference to Canada, we get Baffin Island. Yay, represented by the immediate cold. So we can figure out how to get somebody out of Deep Grave.
I'm very interested in this jail. He describes it as it looks like a crab, and I think there's been fan art that depicts it as well.
There's art in the Subterranean Press of Deep Grave.
Where I saw it, that's right, yes.
And it moves,
and it very much looks like a crab. It literally walks along the seafloor, and it's sucking up garbage.
Yeah.
How does it operate? And what is the route? We know it moves across the world. Like, it's in the Atlantic, obviously, but does it move through all the oceans?
Yeah, like, could it go through down past, like, Cape Horn and to the Pacific? Like, what are we looking at here? I need to know.
Can it jump? Can it swim?
We need to know.
You would assume that it would have to.
Yeah, it's gotta, or else it's gonna accidentally like end up in Mariana's Trench on its side. Can you imagine?
That's my exact thought.
I'm stuck in Mariana's Trench. That's the reel for this week.
But yeah, like this crab walks around the ocean, sucking up garbage for the prisoners to sort.
Mm-hmm. And they mention that it smells beautiful. They mention how bad it smells in there, and I can only imagine if you're just sucking up dead fish and algae for 400 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a smell.
Yeah.
That's got to be a scary ass thing to come across, a giant prison that looks like a crab.
Yeah. Well, and like they talk about, they can hear it coming.
Mm-hmm.
What does it say that it sounds like? It's like a hearing nothing at first, then something like a heartbeat.
Right.
Thickening, multiplying till it sounds like a wooden stick dragged down a rib cage.
That's an awesome description.
That is imagery.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
We also meet Alexander, who
I was about to say, before we go down, we get a little bit more of the current Howlers. So we get more of Rona, and they get a big fight of she wants to go down. No, only everybody over 6 foot gets to go down. And we meet Alexander, who is the oldest. I think it says the oldest of Lauren's great-grandchildren.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then another blast from the past, Milia from the Institute.
Yeah.
Yes! Horseface!
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Horseface Milia. Hydro's favorite. Shout out to Hydro, always wants happiness for Milia. And then Min Min, we get in on Min Min.
Mm-hmm.
And we get
who's the blue? Winkle?
Holloway.
Holloway.
Holloway Zechar.
Yeah.
Who's, if I remember right, in this is described as being super handsome.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost comes across like a gray fox or silver fox. Sorry.
Yeah.
Gray fox.
Except he's young.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's one of Orion's proteges.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or maybe not one of, but possibly
the best one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we also learn about, like, we get a little bit of the fuck aroundness of the Howlers, because it's like, yeah, we hit turbulence on the way over. Winkle's like puking over the side railing, and Holloway's like, yeah, it was man-made. He wouldn't shut up. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
We a couple of really good lines on this one when they're going down, and Clown jokes about he was asked how he thought he would die, and he was like, I don't know, surrounded by tits,
Smothered under tits.
Which then Pebble says to, I forget who, of like, can you? I can't reach my husband. Can you hit him? He's like, what? Yeah.
And then they break in, and the guards there was like, it smells like wet dog, and everyone's like, sorry mate, that's me.
Yeah.
So no matter how bad Deep Grave smells, Severo is worse. This is what we were learning.
Honestly, this tracks. Absolutely tracks.
I mean, he didn't. We learned at the dinner he had. Was it? When was the last time we had beef? It's like 3 days.
3 days ago at the Howler dinner. Yeah.
And then we learned at the end of this chapter that last time he had like sand mites and affected the whole ship. And then a classic line, he's like, ass sweat never killed anyone, and Kieran's like, you can't prove that.
That's not a fact.
Can I just go back to him and Victra's relationship and like, how is she putting up with him? Like, why? Like,
sounds like my man can put it down, is what it sounds.
Yep. That dude is feral.
I agree with Pierce during the Glittering Gala, where he said that during Fuck, Marry, Kill that he would not put up with the stench of Severo. I'm with him on that one. Nope.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just sounds like you're maybe missing out.
That might be worth missing.
Maybe Victra's just gotten her sense of smell removed. Like, maybe that's it.
Then how would she smell your core?
Oh, damn it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they have the technology that they can implement. You can smell only certain smells.
Only certain things. Yeah.
And so they go to the prison or the cell that they are trying to break out their main person and find out he is not in that cell.
1163, I think.
1126. Why am I even here?
That's our great.
You drink, we know things.
Yep. If I forget, he knows, and if he forgets, I'm there.
I mean, I'm just here.
No, you remember a whole bunch of stuff.
The creepy things.
That's fine. Somebody's got to know those things.
Yeah, somebody's got to know them.
Oh.
The rest of us can look not creepy that way.
Fair.
And then so we get Tongueless, which
we don't have his name yet. He gets named.
Yeah,
later,
not
yes.
not immediately.
We have an obsidian without
he gets named
a
by the
tongue.
end of.
Yeah.
Is he named by the end of these chapters?
Yeah,
he is.
I think so. Yeah, because he just before they leave.
It's just before they leave. Severo says like, "What's your name?" And he just like literally.
He's like
clearly like, and so then Severo's like, "Right, tongueless."
Yeah. Yeah, he is. Darrow says he's the most tattooed man or obsidian that he's ever seen. Which is like, that's saying something because like the obsidian shaman are very tattooed, and like even the stained are very tattooed.
I want his backstory. I know Pierce is given what he was, but there's things that don't seem to add up. Like, why is he a guard? If that's what he, holy crap! If he really was for the Syndicate, I'll just say what Pierce said because it was out there. That he used to be a Syndicate something. Why would he be a guard? And I want to know, why was his tongue removed? Like, I want to know everything about what he was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because we even get a lot of hints in this that there's more to him. Like, he has like some sort of extra sense, like hearing. He seems to be able to know that they're talking amongst the comms. And then when they're back on the ship and he's super far away, and Derek even specifically mentions that he's so far away that he couldn't hear what they're talking about, but he turns to them as if he is hearing what they're talking about. There's a lot of
extra auditory processing hardware.
Something.
Yeah.
But
I was going to add something, and then I realized it's more than spoiling just a little bit. So I will leave it out for right now. But yeah, he's a super interesting, why is he the one chosen to be in that cell over everybody else? Like, what is happening? And clearly then... he's
scalped.
And then but then clearly has a back and forth with who they claim is the warden's dog, but the dog clearly knows him and likes him.
Well, to be fair, maybe it's just that he doesn't like the warden.
That's true. The dog could just be nice to anyone.
The dog kicker.
Nice to him. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot happening there that we're not, I don't know, feels like we're missing out on stuff.
Yeah, he's very, very enigmatic, and I love Tongueless, and I hate it.
Yeah. So then they go to the warden to try and figure out where the hell this prisoner that they're looking for is. And an interesting scene, but I mean, not super relevant, but
yeah, I mean, basically we just learned that he lies to them, claims of, no, he's dead. Well, no, that doesn't make sense because you'd report it, and it kind of goes back and forth, and then eventually Severo is very persuasive, as Severo is, and okay, fine, we'll find him. Like,
the warden's balls thank him.
Yes.
For being so cooperative. And so
I like that they dump coffee on his rug.
I know, because they're like, look how expensive this is.
It's a 40,000 credit rug.
This is where we see that, like, I mean, to put Alexander against Lysander, because they're cousins. They are first cousins.
Yep.
Yeah. And so you do get at this point that that Alexander, I'm going to call him Alex. Let's cut the part of this. Alex has clearly that's still being raised in the upper echelon, that he knows all these things off the top of his head and can come across as these, if he wants to be snooty manner of like, what does this cost and what is this, and you kind of get that little bit that like Alex, I think he even says something in all of this where he's like, yeah, that's the like genetic breeding I have, basically, of like, he is the ultimate Iron Gold? What do you point?
You could spoil just a little bit.
Of what am I spoiling?
Him talking with Apple.
No, that's in the... Everything I'm saying is in this section, or else I'm not going to have remembered it. Let's be serious. That's how this works. I get to chapter 30, I stop reading. But yeah, he makes a comment about, you know, he's got that superior... But it's the very interesting... what Lysander could have been if raised by the Arcos versus the Loon. And, you know, how Alex is completely backing Darrow in his little, like, he's his protege and everything, but at the same time can flip to, if he needs to be the snooty gold, he can be the snooty gold. And you just see that, you know, back to that nature versus nurture. Alex is that perfect case of, nature-wise, he knows what he is. He knows he's genetically perfect, pretty much, in comparison to, you know, he knows that it doesn't, you know, personality-wise, it does not affect him in the same way that Lysander does. So it's an interesting seeing those two side by side.
What you're saying is Alexander's got range.
Yes. Yes. But yeah, so I really like Alexander.
Yep.
Even as a brief glimpse, you get a good idea of who he is, and you see the humility that comes across as well, which I think is part of what you're talking about with, not the nature part, but the nurture, is because he's around Darrow and Severo, they're going to call you out on your shit. If you fuck up, they're going to make fun of you. And I think that really takes him from, I'm this iron gold, to maybe I'm not as high up that I think I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, like puking after Apple punctures the warden's eyes.
It's really brutal.
Yeah. Which, and Darrow comments on how difficult it must be being the oldest grandson of Lorne, of he's still held to this higher, you know, standard. And what does that look like of how he should be amazing, but he's not his grandfather. And so working on that. Yeah.
But speaking of Apple, we find out that is the prisoner that they are looking for.
Yeah.
Magnus's brother.
Yeah.
Now, this is the guy I can get behind. I mean, right from the jump, he is described as, like, he just comes off as an alpha male to a T.
Yeah.
And also a complete psychopath.
Yeah,
Psychopath.
And it's not mentioned here, because it's really not mentioned until Dark Age, but there's only 2 people that have ever come across Apple in a duel and have left standing. We only know one of them is Darrow, and it's mentioned that they've come across, but he's a badass.
Yeah, that's something that came up today that we had to call Crescent in. Of they make reference to when Darrow's going, of I remember him outside of my halls. I remember, so Darrow and
face
him
covered in howler blood.
Yeah, and so that's in what I am still naming the Unwritten Decade. We don't know exactly how it went down, but that the reason Apollonius is in this deep grave prison and being held against the Republic is that he, well, Crescent, I had to call you in. What did he do?
We can't say that yet because
we
find
know.
out later.
Oh, okay, so it's later.
Yeah,
it's discussed in the book.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. See, this is why I couldn't remember. But we do know at this point that he has stood in Darrow's hallways, and Darrow has nightmares of this man, of him coming after his family.
But you see how powerful he is. He's supposed to be in a prison with no contact with anybody, yet he has an entire cell block to himself, everything he could possibly want. They talk about that he should be emaciated and skinny, but he's bigger than he ever was. He's got 2 pinks.
Yeah,
he's playing a violin.
He's supposed to have been sucking algae for the last 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
Sucking algae from a pipe for the last
Very
6 years.
specific. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and instead is living the good life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then again, he comes
say
off.
he must have put on 50 kilos. Like, Jesus.
Yeah. And then he's gonna go quietly, and he doesn't kill the warden. He pokes out his eyes, then gets shot in the face with 2 darts and laughs, and then swats away 2 other ones.
Yeah.
And then almost chokes out Darrow. Like, he gets the superior position on him.
Yeah, and then Tongueless knocks him out with a hookah.
Yes! Which is the deciding factor of why Tongueless gets to go with them, because they're like, sure. Like,
he took down Apple.
Yep. Yeah, it's a great entry to a character in so many different forms that you see kind of all of his personality at once, of how far reaching his power is, whether that's because of who he is or his charisma or what. Just, you get so much out of him in so little, small of a piece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's basically one chapter and you get all of this.
Yeah.
All this knowledge. It's a real lore dump.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have one chapter left, the Nessus, and not a ton happens here. This is where further proving that the Howlers are loyal to Darrow, but they're all violent. They're not making jokes like they normally do. They realize they're in a really shit situation, that they just let out 10 of killers that have killed a lot of their friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're once again, I think, questioning, is Darrow making the right decisions?
And I don't know if the way they described Apple so far, and obviously I think he even mentions that they're 10 of the best killers that have been out in the world, and really, if they get out, that's a fire that can't really be controlled.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like a smart move, and we don't know at this point his reason for bringing them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we get. Oh, good.
I was gonna say we get at this section, though, another fight with Darrow. Well, we get the Darrow and Kyrian discussion, which then leads to Rona should not be around for any of this kind of, and like, you gotta put her, and her standing up for herself of, I am not here because I am your blood. I am here because I earned it. And that kind of back and forth of the uncle really only doing it because brother asks. Yeah.
Yeah, we learned that she was basically top of her class in basic, even though she was one of 3 reds.
Yep.
That's, and then she went to Hog's Tooth, which we can kind of assume is armored cav training.
That's where she gets the Drachenjäger bolts put into her body.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Although we don't know what a Drachenjäger is yet.
No.
Yeah.
And then it ends with Darrow going to his room, which I hope this room becomes a real thing one day. But all the walls turn into an ocean crashing, and it has smell-o-vision.
Yeah.
It's a VR room to the full extent.
Yeah.
It sounds amazing. And Darrow cries himself to sleep, which is sad.
Darrow.
Well, it's his own fault.
For our boy. Yeah, it is his own fault. Fuck, man.
A hug and then a slap on the back of the head.
Yeah.
That's right.
this point, the only one we're rooting for of our point of views is Lyria. We're kind of, not the happiest with her either.
No.
Actually, that is true. We end with, and we think she has her happy ending. So we do end this section. That is our little, and then we get Darrow being depressed, sad boy. But she is our slight hope at this stage. But yeah, they're an interesting set of chapters there that really it's all building to something, and we don't know what.
Find out next week.
I was gonna say, thoughts, overarching themes, comments, concerns.
The concern is, why are they bringing these people out, and what are they going to do with it? And obviously, it's still a stealth mission, because he does talk about how the Nessus has to use its cloaking to avoid any of the sensors, and will only be picked up visibly. But by that point, they won't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And they had to burn one of Theodora's deep assets to get access to Deepgrave.
Yeah.
Winkle has to use extra codes. So they're right. They're basically, using up all of this stuff just to make sure that they're not found out. Which, kind of makes sense. They're going to bust out a whole bunch of really shitty war criminals. It's not a good look if the Reaper is breaking out criminals.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's it for me. I don't know if you guys have any other. Tune in next time.
Nothing else for me.
All right. Well, thank you as always, Hawking, for joining us.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah. Next week, we get the return of Hydro and Dram, which last time was a shit show. I have the day booked off for the whole day the next day because I have a feeling it's going to run late like it did last time. So, it's going to be great.
At least Hydro has ammunition now.
That's it. That's why we've brought them back, is because we can finally, Cassius is in a better light. Now Dram is going to be the one who goes down. It'll be something.
Yeah. So tune in for that.
Yeah. Check out our Redbubble, and as always, join the Howler's Den.
Yeah. Good time.
Good night.